Gentleman yields back. The chair would like to recognize Mr. DeFazio for 5 minutes.
I thank the chair. Administrator Huerta, we've heard a good deal about next gen, and I'm not sure whether this question is somewhat repetitive, but my experience has been when I came here 28 years ago that I went out with Norman Etta, then chair of the subcommittee, and we went out to see the air traffic controller station of the future, and this grand vision. I don't know can't remember what we called it back then. Still not there. How much have we spent thus far in this endeavor? You get a number?
We talked about a $6 billion number that has been spent to date.
Right.
A lot of that has been on foundational technology,
Right.
and I would actually like to invite you to come to a tower and show you some of the things that we are using today.
Okay, that'll be good. It's been a couple of years since I visited. But beyond that, I guess I wonder, you're saying it's foundational, so we're not really looking at, we can say at this point that investment has yielded this savings or these efficiencies or those are kind of on the margin yet, right?
Yeah, well, we are, you have to build the foundation,
Right.
and then you build the applications on it. We are very focused now on realizing operational benefit. I would be the first to say that it's not moving as quickly as I would like, but it is the center of our focus.
In Mr. Scoville's, this has been sort of an enduring issue with me. I have described, no offense, but before your leadership, I have described the FAA as the only agency of government worse at procurement than the Pentagon. And, it seems to me to come from constant and consistent change orders as we move through these projects. And Mr. Scoville says in here that ADS-BIN continues to evolve, the technical requirements continue to evolve. My question is, are we trying to chase the future here? Because, it is a rapidly evolving technology and industry, but if we just kind of said, okay, look, this is the best we've got today. It's going to provide these efficiencies. It's going to cost this much. Let's settle on it. And let's let the next generation deal with this great new technology that lets planes, do something else. But are we just keep saying, oh, gee, this just came along, let's make another change. And we'll never get there.
No, I couldn't agree more with that, and that's a constant admonition that I'm giving to our technical staff. We cannot let the perfect become the enemy of the good, because there is significant benefit that we are able to achieve based on technology that we have. The other dimension to that, though, is ensuring that we're able to develop a consensus with industry about how they would like to use the technology, and they will tell you they are not completely aligned on that. And a big part of what we have to do is figure out how do we bring them together around something, and then you throw into the mix our friends in Europe and elsewhere in the world, because industry also does not want to have one set of issues going on this side of the ocean while there are other things going on the other side. Right. It is extremely frustrating sometimes. It takes way too long. But your admonition, which I couldn't agree more with, is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. We need to reach a point where we have a nice complement of benefits and focus on getting to the end there.
All right. I'd point out that Oregon has I think the only insurance exchange that still doesn't work, probably never will work, because they tried to create the future and it's not working. They're taking paper applications, however. That's great. Quick question about the UAS. I'm concerned Congress set a hard deadline. There's obviously a lot of commercial pressure. There's a whole bunch of agencies and everybody, there's always pressure. But do you think, this is very complicated in my mind, to integrate these things safely, not only into the airspace, but just operationally, overpopulated areas, et cetera. Are you going to need more time to come up with something that's really going to work and be fully integrated and protect, safety?
Congress's direction was to ensure safe integration of unmanned aircraft into the national airspace system. And I believe that, well, the way we are approaching it, and I believe that really the only way we can approach it, is through a staged process. That just as aircraft have different characteristics and they are introduced at different times, I see that's how unmanned aircraft will evolve. That we won't get to a point where there will be one day where suddenly it'll be everyone can operate anything, anytime. But as we go through the certification and qualification process, there will be classes of these aircraft that we will be able to introduce, but with the overriding concern that we want to maximize the highest levels of safety.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is this is a case where I don't want you to feel jammed by an artificial deadline created by Congress, you know, despite my complaints about NextGen. So anyway, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Gentlemen's time has expired. Thank you all very much for being here today. One of the benefits, again, of being a freshman and then coming to the chair is I get to ask my questions last. Administrator Huerta, I want to start with you. The FAA Contract Tower Program has a strong and also bipartisan support here in Congress as one of the most cost-effective safety programs for the agency and the taxpayers. And it's my understanding that the FAA continues to work on revising data used in the cost-benefit ratios that determine eligibility and cost-share formulas. Is this accurate?
We're constantly looking to revise and evaluate how we understand what the cost profile for these contracts are and how we can do them as effectively as possible, yes.
Okay, well, can you share an update quickly of these revisions and how you're going to ensure that the revisions to the cost-benefit ratios are done in a collaborative way with input from the industry and the airports that would be impacted?
We'd be happy to provide a briefing on that.
Okay, thank you. I do hope you'll work closely with the industry. Obviously, in my district in central Illinois, there were many that were worried about the contract hours last year. I'm glad that's been solved. Thank you for your cooperation. I know there's been a lot of talk about the public-private partnership language with NextGen. I'm obviously interested in expanding P3 language with provisions that Sherry Bustos and I helped write for our WORDA bill. I don't want to rehash some of the issues regarding NextGen, but I do want to ask you, what are your views on promoting more public-private partnerships during the next reauthorization?
I think it's extremely important, and I think there are a number of technical issues that we may need help from Congress as we look at that question. One example is the large multitude of facilities that we have, and the need to replace certain of those as we consider consolidation or refocusing, or in some instances we have facilities that are 50 years old and they need to be replaced. And under our current framework, all of that is done as a federal project. But the real estate industry has evolved to a point where a lot of that can be done under lease or through some long-term commitment with a private party to provide something such as facilities. My understanding, though, is that there are technical issues on how those projects are considered in a budgetary context that have the effect of discouraging trying to achieve that sort of beneficial use. And so I think that there is a lot of potential in the facilities area, certainly in, as we have been focusing on, how do we work with industry to develop operational procedures. And I think that we also have to look at questions of, you know, the FAA has for a long time been focusing on how can we work together with the private sector on provision of services. And a lot of services that are provided under the FAA banner are in fact privately provided. And that's something that we will continue to work on. It's a business that I was formerly in, so it is something that I know a little bit about. But it's also, I believe, important on two levels. One is it enables us to get maximum benefit of taxpayer resources as they are expended, but it also builds partnerships with industry. And in an industry such as ours, which depends on a close collaboration with industry, there's only strengthening those partnerships is something that's extremely important and has a lot of benefit.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your cooperation, too. I guess we'll leave this one to Mr. Scoville. I have a number of air medical services in my state, Air Life Illinois, Saints Flight. They're interested in the improvement of the low-level aviation infrastructure, especially when it comes to weather reporting. Section 317 of the FAA reauthorization requires the FAA to assess the quality of off-airport low-level weather reporting and issue a report and recommendation within a year. My understanding is that has not yet occurred. Has the assessment even started, and do you have a timeline as to when the FAA is going to complete that work?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have not examined that. That was not one of our mandates under the Act, and we haven't undertaken ourselves to initiate an audit in that area. You mentioned aeromedical services in your district and state. I will say that we do have a body of work in that area. We have initiated specifically an audit to examine FAA's oversight of the helicopter emergency medical service providers to the extent that weather factors will enter into our audit. We can certainly build those in. And in the meantime, perhaps I could defer again to Mr. Huerta for
that's where I was
details and
going
timeline.
next.
Thanks.
We have conducted all the work that's necessary to finalize the report. We conducted a thorough review of aircraft weather observation technologies and potentials for improvements. We also looked at NTSB reports, and the report is now currently being finalized and is in executive review within the agency.
Do you have an estimated timeline?
I don't. I'll need to get back to you on that.
I would appreciate that. My constituents have asked, and I would like to get back to them with that, so thank you for your cooperation.
Sure.
Administrator Huerta, commercial aviation, as we know, drives over 10 million U.S. jobs and $1 trillion in economic activity per year and about 5% of the total U.S. GDP. In your time at the FAA, can you identify for us 3 FAA policies or initiatives that have helped our airlines grow, create jobs, and compete with foreign airlines, many of whom receive direct assistance and subsidies from their government?
Mm-hmm. I think that where I would focus is in 2 major areas. One is on the airline side, the other is on the aircraft manufacturing side. First, on the airline side, we've had a lot of conversation about delivery of benefit, but what has been the highest priority for me has been the operational benefit associated with performance-based navigation. What that does is it reduces the actual cost that an airline pays for fuel, which represents about 40% of their cost basis. If you can focus on reducing fuel costs, you're making for a stronger industry. And that is something that all of us at the FAA are extremely focused on. It's very, those impacts are very specific to particular procedures, particular airports, particular carriers, but we have a very broad base where we're working through very detailed projects in a lot of metropolitan areas around the country. On the certification side, we're doing a lot of work on Part 23. This is the regulation that governs the manufacture of small aircraft and associated parts. And this is an area where it's gotten a lot of attention by Congress. It's also an area which for us is a very significant contributor to the economy and to our exports. And the question that was given to us by industry and by Congress is how do we streamline the certification processes and the approval processes to enable these companies to bring new products to market. A lot of good work has been done there. A lot more is yet to be done, but it's something that if you look at how product is manufactured now, it truly is global. It truly is a very complicated process, but what we have to recognize is that this is an area where it is our largest export industry. It is where we lead the world, and we have to make sure that our industries have a level playing field.
Well, thank you. I think from the line of questioning that you saw here today, there's bipartisan commitment to ensuring that America doesn't lose a competitive advantage because of our regulatory environment. And there's been a lot of talk about the president being able to pick up his pen and increase the regulatory environment, not just on transportation-related issues, but many others. And with that in mind, with so much discussion being put forth that the president is going to offer more and more rules and regulations, are you aware of any proposed FAA rules and regulations that the administration is considering at this point that this committee should be aware of?
Well, there's a number of regulations that we have been asked by Congress to implement.
I'm talking direct administrations, not congressional mandates. Administration, the regulations that could be or are maybe in discussions being proposed with the FAA by the administration without any input from this committee or Congress whatsoever.
No.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mr. Capuano?
No,
This is a first that Mr. Capuano has no questions. I'm going to thank you on behalf of Chairman Lobiondo. and this entire committee for your time here today. And without any objection, and before Mr. Capuano decides to change his mind, this committee is adjourned.